Hi, young agents! Welcome to yet another true crime story on my channel today. In this video, we will discuss 3 men who kidnapped a school bus full of kids in a remote California community in an effort to hold them for ransom. Considering that, you might be wondering whether the kids got away or not. Follow along as I explain what ultimately transpired. A lot of parents in the little town of Chowchilla, California, experienced their worst nightmare in July 1976 when their kids disappeared. On the way home from a summer field trip, a school bus carrying 26 pupils unexpectedly disappeared. The prime suspects were 3 well-off young men, Richard, James, and Frederick Woods. The school bus in a remote part of California, Ed Ray and 26 other kids were kidnapped. The bus driver and one of the students worked 16 hours to free themselves and the other kids from the improvised jail before they ran out of air or the roof of the truck caved in on them from the weight of the doors above. Culprits were astonished when police eventually apprehended them. 3 young guys from rich backgrounds carefully planned and carried out the kidnapping in order to collect a $5 million ransom to settle their debts. In order to go on a summer field trip to a nearby swimming facility, 26 kids ages 5 to 15 boarded a bus driven by Frank Edward Ed Ray on July 15, 1976. Around 4 p.m., Ray was taking the students home when all of a sudden a white van pulled out in front of the bus and stopped in the middle of the road. In addition, 2 men entered the bus with tights covering their heads. One of them grabbed control of the steering while the other threatened Ray with a gun. A third man rode in the van that had blocked the road and followed the bus. Where their eyes were, it almost looked hollow, said Larry Park, who was only 6 years old at the time of the Chowchilla kidnapping. It was like staring at the grave. The man drove the school bus a short distance before stopping it, where another van was waiting in a dry riverbed flanked by bamboo and high scrub. They told Ray and the kids to get in the back of the 2 vans, which were formerly used as prison transport vehicles. In order to prevent the children from seeing outside or hearing outside noises, the windows had been painted black and the interior had been paneled with wood. The 2 vans were then driven by the kidnappers for 11 hours before they stopped at a quarry in the town of Livermore, 100 miles away. Ray and all the kids have dragged down a ladder and stuffed into a moving truck that had been buried 12 feet under the ground. Another victim of the Chowchilla kidnapping, Jennifer Brown, recalled the experience of being forced into the dark, deep pit under threat of gunfire, saying, "Felt like I was headed to the slaughtering." The kidnappers dug a hole in the truck's roof, then forced all 27 members of the group inside. They then covered the hole with earth, placed a large piece of metal and 2 100-pound industrial batteries on top, and then fled the scene. Ray was aware that he and the students wouldn't last long if they ran out of air, despite the fact that the man had furnished the van with fans and mattresses, carved temporary toilets into the wheel wells, and provided bread, peanut butter, and water. Ray and Marshall started to search quickly for a route out of the jail bunker. The moving truck's fans were no longer operating and the roof was starting to sag. The bus driver and the elder student moved rapidly, determined to save all the kids. At the time of the kidnapping, Hyde was only 9 years old, but she still remembers the panic that ensued. Ray and Marshall had said, "If we're going to die, we're going to die trying to get out of here." Ray and Marshall spent hours trying to kick a piece of wood into the slot in the truck's roof after realizing they could reach the top of the truck if they stacked the mattresses. The metal cover and the batteries were ultimately able to be moved out of the way. But Marshall then saw that there was also a wooden box sitting atop the exit. He made the choice to delve under it. Mark recalled Marshall's resolve at that very time. He continued digging after he had run out of energy. After 16 hours of the kids being buried alive, a glimmer of light finally pierced the darkness of the truck with the soil. They had all been saved by Ed and Michael Marshall. Marshall and Ray assisted the other 25 kids in getting out of the truck after Marshall carefully poked his head out of the mud to make sure their kidnappers weren't close. They all made their way to the pit security cabin where they informed the staff of what had happened. When the group arrived, the guards were frightened and immediately called the police. Ray and the kids were safe, but the offenders were still at large. Investigators quickly came to the conclusion that the only person who could have buried the truck and brought in 27 prisoners in the middle of the night without being seen would have had unrestricted access to the pit. On Frederick Woods, the son of the pit owner, they concentrated their point into the Chowchilla kidnapping. After 16 hours, Ed, Ray, and the kids were able to escape from the truck. Investigators discovered a gun used in the kidnapping, a draft of a ransom note, and even a paper with a subject line plot when carrying out a search warrant at the Woods estate. The Schoenfeld brothers, James and Richard, who were thought to be Woods' two collaborators, were unable to be discovered. However, all three men were arrested within a 2-week period. 8 days after the kidnapping, Richard surrendered himself to law enforcement. His brother was arrested near the park in California, and Frederick Woods was arrested in Canada after avoiding capture in the United States. The plot soon started to come together. The guys kidnapped the kids with the intention of demanding a sizable ransom because they were strong in debt. James testified at a 2015 parole hearing. "We needed several victims to get multiply millions. And we have chosen children because they are lovely. The government is prepared to offer a ransom in exchange for them. Moreover, they don't resist. That makes them weak, and they will bother it." The man had been plotting the Chowchilla kidnapping for more than a year. They had determined the bus route, converted the prison vans, built the underground bunker, and even constructed a lead box to hold the ransom money in case the police put tracking devices in the money. But though the first part of their plan went off without a hitch, everything went wrong when they tried to phone in the ransom. The telephone lines to the police station were overloaded with calls from frantic parents demanding answers about their missing children. Woods and Schoenfeld brothers decided to take a nap and try again later. When they woke up and turned on news, they saw that the children had already escaped. All prisoners received life sentences with the possibility of parole after entering guilty statements during the course of the trial for kidnapping for ransom and robbery. James was released from prison in 2015 and Richard was released in 2012 after serving 36 years. The parole board didn't respond favorably to Frederick Woods' appeal. Because of how he downplayed the crime, how he behaved in jail, and the fact that he had cell phones and other illegal items in his possession, he was time and again denied parole. Unknown to the prison, he was operating a car dealership and a gold mining operation from behind bars. When a workers' compensation claim was made against him, the authorities only learned about the enterprises. Due to his heritage from two rich families, Woods also received an inheritance from a trust fund apparently worth $100 million. He also bought a home near the prison. Frederick Woods earned 2 recommendations for parole in March 2022. However, the governor must also allow the release of Frederick Woods as well as the consent of the whole parole board and the board's legal lawyer. The pain that Woods inflicted upon his victims more than 40 years ago still affects them now, despite the comparatively comfortable life Woods has led in prison. The kidnappers essentially stole our entire adolescence. According to Jody, who was 10 at the time of the incident, everything about our early years was dramatically altered. Many of the kids later struggled with depression and substance misuse. They experienced panic attacks and had nightmares about being abducted and dying. A last tourist was shot by a child with a BB gun after their car broke down in front of his house. Many of them had served time in prison for engaging in controlling behavior against another person. The emotional scars they leave on children are innumerable. Neil, then 10 years old, claimed that her severe anxiety made it difficult for her to lead a regular life. She said, "I'm so overwhelmed that I had to leave work. I tell myself that I should be able to go past this and handle it. However, I'm now in a mess." So, that is the end of the story about 3 men who abducted a school bus full of children in California in an attempt to hold them for ransom. But then the students and their bus driver dug their way to freedom. You can check out my previous videos on true crime stories. Write your comment in the comment box and let me know what you think about the story. Also, you can let me know if you have any stories you would like me to talk about next, and I will provide you with details of it. If you would like to support my channel, you can buy a coffee in the link below. Thank you, take care, and stay safe.